Alright, let's do it. I've talked about this in previous videos. Let me just make a whole video talking about should a non-quarterback win the MVP award, and should a non-quarterback ever win the MVP award? If you follow this channel, you know I have said no in the past, and you might wonder, well, why? I mean, why can't a non-quarterback win the MVP award? And so in this video, what I'm going to do is try and give the best argument I can towards either side. While I have my own opinion, and that's certainly going to bias the way that I speak about things, I'm going to do my best to go in with an open mind and try to come up with the best arguments for either side, and then we'll, come to a conclusion together at the end of the video. So let's just get into it. First, I'm going to show a couple of pages. These are from Pro Football Focus, and really what you want to look at is all the way towards the right. You see that when a player is a free agent, PFF is kind enough to give us their PFF WAR. It's not a stat they have readily available, but it's just something we're going to use, one of the stats we're going to use in this video. You see Davante Adams, he was a free agent. He was Pro Football Focus's #1 ranked free agent that offseason, and, really good stuff, right? You see that his WAR, or wins above replacement, the following season as the #2 ranked wide receiver was 3/4 of a win. That's a lot. I have seen some players get close to 1 or even slightly over 1. I've never seen anything better than that, but that's kind of the best that you're typically looking at for a wide receiver. If you look at Geno Smith, last season, you see that his total PFF WAR was 2.71. 2.71 last year, so he's kind of blowing that out of the water, right? And Geno Smith wasn't even he wasn't a top 5 quarterback last year, and he was still able to get, according to this, over 3 times the value that Davante Adams had. In fact, in 2021, where he only played 200 snaps, he was still able to add 2/3 of the value Davante Adams added. It just kind of goes to show the importance of the quarterback position, if you believe in this stat, which I do. Even like Derek Carr last year, who was actively not that good of a quarterback. He was the 27th ranked quarterback. Still, the value between him and the difference between him and a replacement level quarterback was still a WAR of 1.2. That's a bad quarterback season, and it's still more important than kind of the best wide receiver seasons you typically get. Also, we can look at my own study I made a couple years back where I kind of just looked at how often does performing well in specific positional categories, how does that equate to wins? So this is also kind of a wins above replacement level thing for being a tier 1 player at this section. And you see, if you're a tier 1 quarterback, it's just under 4 wins, 3.99 wins. That's typically the WAR for a top 5 quarterback, and it can go over that. Of course, the highest WAR I've seen ever was Tom Brady had one season where he was 5.8. That was definitely on the extreme high end. I don't think anyone's done that this season. But you compare that to the wide receiver room in general, and that's all players who are running routes. So it's not even just wide receivers. You also throw in tight ends and halfbacks. That would just be 2.32 wins above replacement for being in, elite caliber of wide receiver room. So even, you take Cincinnati's entire receiving room, it's kind of, it's still a little bit lower than, Dak Prescott this season. So, okay, just knowing that trying to make an argument to counter it feels a bit difficult. It does, because okay, if those are things you believe in, if the average quarterback you take, great quarterback, you take them away, it's a 4-win difference. The average great wide receiver, you take them away, it's a 1-win difference. Well, is Tyreek Hill 4 times better than the typical best receiver season? No, he's not. He's maybe 1.5 times better, maybe 2 times better, certainly not 4 times better. And even if you want to say, well, no quarterback is having a top 5 caliber season this year in a given year, I don't really know if I agree with that. I would say Dak Prescott is having a typical elite quarterback season, and even if he's not, basically no quarterback would be having to have a top 13 caliber season in a typical year for there to even be a discussion. So it's really, from those numbers, not plausible. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's for sure not the case that Tyreek Hill is the most valuable player, because, of course, it's football, and you can't perfectly equate value. No matter what stats we use, no matter what numbers we try and figure out here, it can never be perfect, as people in my Twitter mentions love to yell at me sometimes when I use a PFF grade to try and make a point. Of course, there's a lot more that goes into it than that. And I wanted to look at maybe some differences, like when Tyreek Hill is in the lineup and Tua is not, or other way around. Don't really have that. Tua and Tyreek Hill both went down at the same time last season. They both played the same games last year, so no real information there. The only time we have a chance was that Titans game, which, offense looked a lot worse with Tyreek Hill banged up. Didn't look great when he was out there either, though. So, and it's just one game. Nothing we can completely point towards. But you do have to just wonder, how much does Tyreek Hill help Tua? Tua is going to get a lot of credit and a lot of, value, and you can definitely say he adds a lot of value to his team. But how much of that is because of what Tyreek Hill opens up for him? It's a very valid question. And for Tyreek Hill, while yes, it's true, there's no sample size of really him without Tua. I mean, there kind of is, right? We saw Tua before Tyreek Hill, but, with a lot changed that year, including an entire new scheme. So I don't think it's totally fair to just give that all to Hill. But there was a team that didn't change a lot that added Tyreek Hill. That was, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs with Alex Smith. Well, did we see a big jump in his play? Well, if you look at his Pro Football Focus grades year in and year out, you see that, you can kind of tell when Tyreek Hill showed up, right? It was 2016 was Tyreek Hill's first real season, but he really didn't become a key part of the offense until 2017 when you saw Alex Smith have a bigger jump. So his Hill's rookie season was 2016. You saw a jump. Hill kind of really became part of the offense. You saw a bigger jump. So, including his best graded season of his career. Now, Alex Smith had a very similarly graded season passing-wise in 2011. Obviously, Tyreek Hill was not with the Giants then. So it's not like Alex Smith had never had a season like that. But this is, at least to me, evidence that, at least to some degree, having a guy like Hill is going to bump up the Pro Football Focus grade, and is also, if you look at like a WAR stat, it is going to affect that as well. And maybe some credit is going to go towards the quarterback that should be going towards the receiver. And while many might counter that argument and say, well, couldn't you just say the same thing the other way around? Doesn't yes, Tua gets extra credit because Hill gets open, but doesn't Hill get extra credit because Tua hits Tyreek Hill when he's open? Yes, it does all work together, of course. I would probably say it goes more towards one direction, though. I would say that in this scenario, I think Tua probably gets more of, if we look at, how much credit due to a share, I think Tua probably gets more of that chunk than Tyreek Hill does. So I think that probably Hill deserves a little bit more of it. And I would say that I think that it is reasonable to say that Hill probably is maybe better than whatever his PFF WAR is this season. I think that's totally reasonable to say. But again, unless we're going to make the argument that Tyreek Hill is worth half of the value that Tua is bringing to the table, it still really isn't in an argument for him being better than a top 5 quarterback, or more valuable than a top 5 quarterback, I should say. So who should win the MVP? I still can't give it to a receiver. I can't, even though I think you can make an argument. It's not an argument I would make. However, there is one more argument I should make, and that's, well, why should the MVP go to the most valuable player? Again, my response is it's called MVP, so that's why it should go to the most valuable player, and the most valuable player is always a quarterback. However, I think that a lot of people feel like, well, why does it have to be that way? We want to have an award to celebrate greatness. That's the whole point of the award, right? It's not something we want to just look on the stat sheet and say, okay, it should be, that guy, got it, let's move on. It's something it's a fun award, and it shouldn't just go to whoever is the best quarterback. If we want to give an award to the best quarterback, let's create the Tom Brady Award or the Johnny Unitas Award or whatever. Give that to the best quarterback, and then let the MVP, kind of similar to how baseball does it, you only give it to a quarterback if they're really deserving. If they do something otherworldly, like when Mahomes threw for 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns, okay, you can get it there. Sure, a season like that, then you get the argument. But, on a typical season like this one, then it would be between, Myles Garrett and, Tyreek Hill and Christian McCaffrey, right? And then, maybe you would throw Dak in, but probably not this year. That, to me, seems like a more fun system. I think you could argue we already kind of have a system like that because there is the Offensive Player of the Year award, so doesn't that just do it? Well, again, no, because the MVP is just always going to be considered more valuable than that. It's a more prestigious honor than that. That's just because of the branding. That's how it works. So, and, awards are fun. Let's just give out an extra award. Why not? Feels like it could be a fun situation. So if it was me, that's how I would do it. But yeah, those are my thoughts on all of this. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.